afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Vineet Thar, and thank you very much for this wonderful speech, sir. My question to you is that when I was hearing Mr. Chawla talking about BJP since 1980s, starting from 4 seats to a 3-digit number in the last government what we had. My question as a young Indian, when we talk about 67% of Indian population living of my age, which is less than 35 today, what does BJP stand for a young Indian like me, who's educated, who's informed, who's smart, and who can figure out the difference today?
Right, that's our strength. Anyone, any demographer, any person who thinks about populations of the world, they would readily and immediately admit that the fact that our younger generation is of such a size, they already describe it as our क्या कहते हैं segment हमारा, it's our strength. Therefore, it is, and in terms of IQ, it's very high. When I first visited Microsoft in 1990, I was so greatly impressed by the research work going on there. But I was even more impressed by the fact that 25 to 30% of the people working there were Indians. And since then, I came convinced that India can be a world leader so far as IT software is concerned. And it is recognized as being among the foremost countries today. But what is more important is that democracy has to be conducted in a manner as to make parochial considerations sublimated by considerations of the country's welfare. My biggest complaint against the Congress party insofar as security is concerned is that very often it is not national interest that is foremost. It is the interest of the party in terms of votes that becomes important. Otherwise, in no country of the world could a Supreme Court judgment be kept pending when 9 security persons who have lost their lives, who have been rewarded for preventing the 5 terrorists from entering parliament, they hand back their rewards. They return their awards only to demand that Afzal, who has been found guilty by the Supreme Court, by all courts, right up from the trial court to the Supreme Court, he must be hanged. The court's verdict must be honored. The government refuses to do it, and the government refuses to tell the people why they are not doing it. And the consideration is simple. Vote bank politics has distorted politics in a way that nothing else has done. And therefore it is that I say that to the extent that we are able to make choice of our representatives less influenced by caste, parochial considerations, and more influenced by a proper assessment of the merit of the party, merit of the candidate, to that extent, the country will move ahead.
Mr. Advani, I wanted to ask you, you talked about the threat to democracy during emergency. Now that time is kind of irrelevant, well, it's old history for my generation. For us, what we perceive more as a threat to democracy is the BJP, is more like its religious handtakes, the charisma that you have, and the propaganda that you support. What I would like to know that what would you protect, democracy or secularism, when a contradiction occurs like it did in Gujarat?
There is no contradiction. There is no contradiction. In fact, I remember understanding the meaning of secularism first time way back in 1948 from Sri Golwalkar, Sri Guruji's Sarsanga Chalak of the RSS, whom everyone thinks that they were absolutely communal, this, that. He said that in India, he used the word, said, traditionally, Indian polity has never accepted theocracy. And he said it's ironical that this government, immediately without much thought, has accepted as the national symbol a symbol of Ashoka's Buddhist rule. Ashoka declared his rule as a Buddhist state. And that has been accepted. He said it's ironical. Of course, I am of the view, now if anyone says that he criticized the emblem, it would be wrong. Once having accepted something, we can have two opinions as to whether Vande Mataram should have been accepted or Jana Gana Mana should be accepted. But having accepted Jana Gana Mana as the national anthem, I should think that there should be no further discussion on that. Having accepted a certain flag, tricolor, as the national flag, there should be no further discussion on that. Similarly on the emblem. But at that point of time, when he told me, Sri Golwalkar told me that it is odd that the emblem of a theocratic state ruled by Ashoka has been accepted as our emblem. I felt that there is some substance in what he said. But secularism is part of our structure. It comes naturally to us. And it is therefore, when I visited Pakistan two years back, they asked me, is it not odd that you who belong to Karachi, who are from Sindh, you have become the president of one of the largest parties in India, and you have risen to become Deputy Prime Minister. Did not your Sindhi origin prove an obstacle in the way of your political life? I said, never. Because I believe that Indian culture and ethos are assimilative. And I said it is something for you to ponder over. Why is it that Muslims who migrated to Pakistan from UP, from Madhya Pradesh, from other parts of India, they are still muhajirs there. They have to find a new party for themselves, float a party from themselves, MQM. Why is it? You ponder over it. But so far as Indian culture is concerned, Indian ethos is concerned, and therefore I again and again emphasize that in Indian nationalism is based upon our culture. That is assimilative, that is absorbing.
But I'd like to ask you, sir. You say, and I don't represent Congress. You very well said
I know that.
You want to fight the militants. But can you tell me, sir, when those 3 people were released, I was going to leave the government. Because one way, this nation, if it has to prove that you're going to fight terrorism, and we could have easily sacrificed those 89 and shown the world that we mean to fight. So could you tell us, what was the reason? Because you, and I must tell these people, what we see you as, a hard face of BJP like Sardar Patel. I'm telling you very frankly. And Bajpai ji as a soft face of RSS, BJP, whatever you may call it. Tell us, sir, do you really mean to fight the terrorists? Or is it just a short-term strategy to win the votes?
If we had not intended to fight the terrorists, there was no reason why Agra would have failed. If we had no intention of doing so, Agra would not have failed, because Agra failing, particularly after we had invited him to come here, was something for which we were criticized by our own people also. But so far as the hijack episode is concerned, my views on that are known broadly, but I have the limitation of being part of a government, and in that government it was felt that at this point of time 160 or more passengers whose lives were at stake they should be rescued. And as I mentioned even in my speech, that was the advice given by various parties also. I cannot defend anything, but I can only say that this was the background. That doesn't in any way, make our approach to the problem of terrorism different from what I have said.
There was a time when this upper echelon of leadership, like yours, which is still respected and looked upon as leadership, that's a completely different strata. But by and large, Janta, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room, do not really look upon politicians as inspiring anymore. A small thing happened to me the other day. I was applying for medical health insurance from a private company. And when I wrote my occupation as a politician, secretary to secretary in the health section, they refused me the health insurance. So when I asked my secretary, why have they refused me health insurance? They said, oh, because you're a politician. Now, I won't go into why, because I delved into it further and said that this is discrimination, reverse discrimination. So what would you suggest to us, Manni Advani ji, that what should we be doing or what should we be doing to clean up our act?
Yashodhara is a politician. I am also a politician. For both of us, our responsibility is to see that by our own conduct, our own behavior, we are able to change this image of the ugly Indian politician. I have often, while we have training classes conducted for my own party colleagues, various kinds of training classes, मैं उनको कहता हूँ, I begin with saying that in many political parties, they feel that these training classes are absurd, meaningless. What is important, how to win votes. But I would only like to tell you of a small couplet that I heard at a Hindi Kavi Sammelan. And that couplet says, नए नए मंत्री ने ड्राइवर से कहा कार आज मैं चलाऊंगा. नए नए मंत्री ने ड्राइवर से जब कहा कार आज मैं चलाऊंगा, ड्राइवर ने कहा हुजूर मैं उतर जाऊंगा. ड्राइवर ने कहा हुजूर मैं उतर जाऊंगा. यह कार है, सरकार नहीं जो भगवान के भरोसे चल जाएगी. So that it's only politicians who can get on in politics and even run governments without any training. कार तो नहीं चलेगी, कार के लिए training चाहिए. Now I said this kind of sarcastic comment about political people that should not be allowed to become prevalent, because by our own conduct, by our own understanding, by our own training, we should change this image.
60% of the country's population represents the young Indians. But if we see the BJP leadership is comprising of the leaders of experience, which we certainly appreciate, but none with the freshness of youth. And if we see in contrast, Congress has several young leaders like Sachin Pilot, Jyotiradittya Scindia, and Milind Deora. Why so with BJP?
अखबारों में नाम नहीं आता होगा, वैसे तो बहुत And I don't deny. There was a time when we started our Janasangh, we did not have a youth wing at all, because we used to look for aged people to lead us. थे नहीं हमारे पास, इतनी कमी थी. Of course, I am talking of my own experience in the early decades. But now also I feel very happy. Only the other day, when I went to a Yuvati Sammelan, I was surprised to see the whole Mavalankar Hall and the galleries above, full of it. Anyway.
Yeah, my name is Abhay Singh. I've recently moved to India, to Bombay. To repeat the first two questions of the young people here in anticipation of an answer. My further comment and question is that when do you think, Mr. Advani, that the level of politics here, the maturity of the level of politics here will elevate itself to the level that we can actually focus on some of the simple things which we can do quite easily, such as clean our streets, such as stop people from spitting, such as, organize our traffic. Very simple things that make a big difference, which can be done quite quickly.
prior to 97, even we did not talk as much about governance and development as we have been talking since 1977. I remember my longest Rath Yatra was in 1997 when India completed 50 years of its independence. And the only message that I gave in all the hundreds of speeches that I delivered was that the patriots who had fought for India's freedom, they had dreamt that within a short time, India would be free of poverty, would be free of illiteracy, would be free of backwardness. But if after 50 years of independence, this has not been achieved, what is the reason? And the reason that I tried to convey was, we have not been able to convert Swaraj into Suraj, self-government into good government. And therefore, hereafter, every election that we fight, good governance, development would be important factors in the agenda, important issues in the agenda. In Gujarat also, despite the vicious campaign that went on there against us, against our leader in Gujarat, if we succeeded, it was principally because of the success in showing good governance, having development, and also having an honest leader to lead it.
Krishna ji, मेरा नाम मधुर बजाज है. You have well expounded the differences as you saw it between the BJP leaders and Congress leaders. As an industrialist, I would like to ask you, is there any possibility of the leadership of the two parties, Congress and BJP, coming together? As we see the differences between the coalition partners of the Congress. In fact, when you take reforms or economic development, etc., we find a lot of similarities between your party and Congress. So is that a possibility? So secondly, you talked about one India, and 3-4 times you repeated it. In our state of Maharashtra, from where I come from, you know what's happening. It is easier for us to become a global citizen rather than an Indian citizen. What is your and your party's view on one of your erstwhile partners trying to throw away non-Maharashtrians from Maharashtra?
I think even though we have an alliance in Maharashtra, mine was perhaps the first forthright statement on the issue. And that too, I compared it to what we did in Jammu and Kashmir. And I said our first national agitation was on the issue that no person from any part of India can be prevented from going and settling in any other part of the country. And so that applies to Bombay also. This is certainly true, that the problem has arisen also because of the joblessness created in the countryside, in the rural areas. And unless that is tackled effectively, you can't have 65 to 70% of the population living on land, which is after all limited, and they have to be provided with employment and job opportunities. And otherwise, the process of urbanization is natural. You cannot prevent, first in the beginning it was preventing people from coming from the south, now UP बिहार की बात है. अब दिल्ली जो है, वो दिल्ली जो कुछ है या बॉम्बे भी जो कुछ है, वो इस कारण है क्योंकि बाहर से लोग इतने आए, उन्होंने आकर उसको बनाया है. इसीलिए उसके बारे में हमारा दृष्टिकोण बिल्कुल साफ है.
Advani ji, we heard, of course, as Prabhu ji, Arun ji, they addressed you that party of difference, leader of difference. And in today's politics, even dynasty is being threatened by caste politics. Maybe you could rise, but in today's politics, even stuff like you cannot find the space in politics. The caste which is sizable number in particular area is easily producing caste leader. And they are, wherever the caste leader is, caste-based leader is emerging, development, health, education, corruption, they are not important at all. Even that is even helping. Supposing a particular politician is earning or is corrupt, the voters, the caste men, they're happy that even our leader also is becoming richer. Then how are you tackling? I don't think that there is, even Congress is trying to tackle, or you are trying to tackle. This is going to be a great danger to our democracy, and I don't think that a serious attempt has begun from any side. Would you please enlighten me? What is your future course of action? Because it is immediately to be addressed thing.
My political journey began through the Janasangh and later on the BJP. But my entry into public life, something not related to my education or family, was by becoming a member of the RSS. And the biggest training that we received in the RSS was not to think in terms of caste. For a long time, particularly before we came to politics, we never even knew the caste of many of our own colleagues, did not even know it. It's later on that we learned about it. But today what is needed is empowerment of those castes which have remained outside the mainstream, that have not been really given their place in society, and that effort has to continue in a sustained manner. It continues.
Thank you, Advani ji. Thank you, everybody.